I don't know. This is something that I actually have to step back and kind of like try to find a solution because I'm so tired.
Aryna Sabalenka has spent the last 2 weeks defending a Nike kit that her own fans called the worst dress in tennis this year. An orange top, a black mesh net overlay, and a comment section publicly begging Wilson to poach her. Then, in the same 48-hour window, Nike quietly pushed a different athlete to the front of its 2026 U.S. Open campaign. Not the world number one, not the reigning Indian Wells and Miami champion. A 21-year-old from Quezon City ranked 20th in the world, Alex Eala, and the frustration boiling out of the reigning number one's press quotes suggests she has noticed exactly what the algorithm noticed first. Alex Eala has been a Nike athlete since 2019. That is not a 7-month marketing experiment. That is a 7-year runway the swoosh has been quietly paving since she was 14. Sabalenka, by contrast, waited more than 600 days as the WTA's top-ranked player before Nike gave her a custom kit at all. A lag boardroom reported in May of last year. That gap is the entire story. And on August 6th, that gap turned into a product drop that lit tennis Twitter on fire. Nike unveiled the 2026 Nike Court Slam dress in Old Royal Blue, with basketball-inspired black and white mesh detailing retailing at $140 on Nike.com. The face selling it was Eala. The dress launched days after Sabalenka's own U.S. Open kit hit shelves, and the contrast was immediate and brutal. Yahoo Sports ran the headline, "Aryna Sabalenka faces backlash over her 2026 U.S. Open kit." Fans piled on. One posted, "Nike has lost its creative direction." Another tagged Wilson directly and pleaded for a rescue. And Sabalenka, according to reports from SI Serve, essentially asked her fanbase to complain to Nike on her behalf, publicly turning her supporters against her own sponsor while a 20-year-old on the same brand modeled the marquee Slam release without saying a word. You can understand her frustration. She earned the ranking, she won the title, she showed up. But this is where the sympathy runs into the marketing data. And the marketing data is not on her side. Start with what Sabalenka herself said out loud. Speaking to the press about Nike's creative treatment of other athletes, she delivered the line the internet has not stopped replaying. "For me, I wish Nike would let me do this too." She then added the sentence that made it worse, that, unfortunately, the next season was not going to be that special either. That is the reigning world number one openly envying the kind of creative attention Nike is giving to lower-ranked players. When the villain admits, on the record, that the hero has what she wants, the story is over before it starts. Then look at what Nike did in response to that frustration. They did not soften the campaign, they doubled down. Eala appeared on Nike's channels in the old royal dress, then teased a second look, a mint green kit. On her own Instagram days later, 2 coordinated reveals, 1 athlete, 0 coordination visible for the number 1 seed. And here is the detail that Reddit's r/tennis mega thread caught before mainstream outlets did. The dress Nike put on Eala is not a custom design. It is a generic Nike Court Slam that other Nike-sponsored players will also wear at Flushing Meadows, which means Nike did not just give Eala a dress, and Nike chose Eala's face to sell the dress to the entire global market. That is not a courtesy. That is a market read. Sabalenka would probably prefer they had simply handed Eala a custom kit, because this decision is worse for the ego. Nike had every athlete on its roster to model this release. They picked the Filipina ranked 20th in the world. The fans who have been saying for 2 years that Eala's marketing gravity was outrunning her ranking. You were reading the situation correctly. Nike's marketing department has now confirmed it with a product listing, layer in what Nike has quietly been building underneath all of this. At Wimbledon 2025, Eala walked onto center court carrying a Sampaguita hair tie, the Philippine national flower, a piece Nike specifically designed for her as a heritage tribute. Sabalenka is fighting for a custom dress. Eala is already receiving custom accessories. tailored to her country's identity. That is not the same tier of relationship. That is not even the same conversation. And the pattern only sharpens when you widen the frame. Yahoo ran a backlash piece on Sabalenka's kit. Sportskita ran another. TikTok creators stitched the two reveals side by side. Eala's dress praised, Sabalenka's roasted, in the exact same swipe. Two Nike releases, one window, one celebrated, one mocked. The ranking says one thing. The market says the opposite. If this were just fans on Reddit and TikTok, it would be noise. It is not. In March of this year, Forbes published a feature by contributor Melissa Lawrence Corbett titled, "Why Alexandra Eala Could Be Tennis' Next Global Trailblazer." A magazine that does not run trailblazer features on players ranked in the 20s by accident. Forbes does not chase clout. Forbes chases market signals. And when Forbes puts the word trailblazer next to a 21-year-old's name 6 months before Nike leads its U.S. Open campaign with her, that is not a coincidence. That is two institutions arriving at the same conclusion from different directions. Add Tony Nadal, a Hall of Fame coach, uncle to 22-time major champion Rafael Nadal, and the man who has quietly integrated Eala into the Nadal Academy's most protected inner circle. When he publicly congratulated her on Instagram after the Washington title, he did not use the language of a coach describing a project. He used the language of a coach describing an heir. Forbes made the market case. Tony Nadal made the tennis case. Nike just closed the loop. This is not a dress. This is Nike rewriting how tennis marketing gets allocated. For 30 years, the swoosh followed the ranking, or Serena, Sharapova, Osaka, Goff. The number at the top of the WTA sheet decided who fronted the slam campaigns. That model just broke. Nike's decision to lead its 2026 U.S. Open campaign with the Filipina at number 20 over the Belarusian at number 1 is a signal that global market reach has overtaken ranking as the currency of the sport's biggest sponsor. Southeast Asia is a market tennis brands have historically ignored. Eala's Instagram posts routinely draw six-figure engagements. When she plays, entire time zones stop. Nike ran the numbers, and the numbers pointed east. The next flashpoint arrives on August 24th in Flushing Meadows. Both women will walk into Arthur Ashe wearing kits that tell two completely different marketing stories, and the crowd will decide in real time which one Nike was right about. After that comes the Asian Swing, the China Open in Beijing, the Wuhan Open, where Eala will play in the exact region Nike just bet its U.S. Open campaign on. That is the schedule. This is not a one-week story. For every Filipino who has watched a tennis broadcast for 20 years without ever seeing themselves in the marketing, this is the moment the sport blinked first. Not a courtesy invite, a campaign lead. Eala is not perfect. On August 15th in Cincinnati, she fell to world number 10, Amanda Anisimova, in the round of 32, 6-4, 4-6, 2-6, ending a 5-match streak against top-tier opposition. It was a real loss. It stalled her ranking climb heading into New York. She did not post a caption defending herself. She did not vent. Days later, she quietly appeared in a Nike-produced U.S. Open reveal video in the dress, doing the job she was hired to do. Her response time was less than a week. The brand answered for her 600 days of waiting for a custom kit. One line about wishing Nike would let her do this too. A hair tie shaped like a Philippine flower on center court, a generic slam dress with a 21-year-old's face selling it to the world. Nike did not snub Aryna Sabalenka. Nike replaced the metric, the ranking used to decide who wore the campaign. Now the market does, and by that metric, the girl the Philippines has been shouting about for 2 years is beating the woman the rankings have crowned for 2 years. Here is the question worth arguing about in the comments. If you were Nike's chief marketing officer heading into Flushing Meadows, would you lead the campaign with the world number 1 who is publicly asking her fans to complain about you, or the 21-year-old whose supporters crash your online store every time she blinks? Stake your claim below and defend it. If you want to be the person who called this shift before ESPN, before the Nike investor calls, before Sabalenka's next press conference, subscribe now and follow the Eala saga through the US Open, Beijing, and Wuhan with us. The people who saw it first get to say they saw it first. Prove you were one of them.